I'm Phil Hellmuth Jr., and in this lesson, we'll look at one of the more advanced concepts in post-flop play, the blocking bet. In truth, the concept behind the blocking bet is pretty simple, and it goes something like this. You're holding a marginal hand, well out of position, and you're afraid your opponent may make a large bet that you cannot call. So instead, you decide to control the size of the pot by making a small bet that he's likely to call, but not likely to raise. Like I said, simple, right? Okay, let's take a closer look at the whole thing and go back to the hand from earlier where we were holding the Queen 10 of hearts on a board of King of hearts, 8 of hearts, Queen of diamonds, a 3, and a 9. If we're in position with this hand, our play is pretty easy. We can check if our opponent checks and hope that our hand is best at the showdown, or we can bet it if he checks and hope he folds. If he bets, we can call, or we can raise to try to push him out of the pot. Being in position gives us a lot of options. But if we're out of position, things aren't so easy. Enter blocking bet. If we check to our opponent, we have no control over how much he might bet. If he applies a lot of pressure with a big bet, we're going to have to fold, and we may be forced to give up the best hand. The solution to this problem is to make a blocking bet, which lets you control how much money you put into the pot. By making this bet with a marginal hand like our Queen 10, we make it hard for our opponent to raise us with anything but the best hand. This play is especially effective on a board where there are straight and flush draws, because when we bet out, it becomes almost impossible for our opponent to bluff raise us. And if we do get raised, we can pretty safely fold knowing that our opponent does actually have us beat. The key to a good blocking bet is to actually bet very small, something like 10 to 25% of the pot. The small bet accomplishes two things. First, it makes our hand look strong since it looks like we're trying to squeeze some extra value out of our opponent. Second, the second advantage of the small bet, that is, and the most important one, is that our bet is generally going to be much smaller than whatever our opponent would have bet if we had checked to him. This means we can actually end up saving money if our opponent calls and has us beat. So check it out. Say that you bet 300 on the end. All right? And he calls. Well, if you had checked it, he may well have bet 700 and you may have ended up calling that. So you save money with a blocking bet. Again, we also save money if our opponent raises, since we put in less money by betting ourselves than we would have if we had just called his bet on the river. In other words, we would bet 300, he raises, we fold of course, but we've only lost 300. But if we had checked it and he bet 700, we would have lost 700. What's more, there are times when the blocking bet will actually win us the pot because it gives our opponent a chance to fold a marginal hand of his own like Queen Jack that would have basically beaten us. It would have beaten our Queen 10. We made our little blocking bet. He laid down the best hand. Sweet!